Administrative power. So, the Supreme Court has administrative power over the lower courts as well as in disciplining judges. So, the administrative power of the Supreme Court are essential for maintaining the rule of law and ensuring that the judiciary operates effectively and fairly. So, by overseeing lower courts and disciplining the judges, the Supreme Court upholds the integrity and independence of the judicial system, which is fundamental to the functioning democracy. So there is this case for the request for guidance. There is this issue that whether the requirements for retiring employees of the judiciary to obtain a clearance of pendency or non-pendency of administrative case from the CSC is not applicable for the employees of the regional trial court. So the government employees, of course, must obtain a clearance from the Civil Service Commission when retiring. However, ang Supreme Court they clarify that this requirement does not apply to employees of the regional trial court since as a judiciary has administrative supervision over its personnel. Therefore, the RTC staff should be secured in their clearance from the Supreme Court instead of the CSC. In summary, the provision seeks to balance the efficiency of the judicial system with the right and autonomy of judges, promoting a fair and effective judiciary. Order a change of venue or place of trial to avoid miscarriage of justice. This is what happened in Ampatuan trial. Remember, after the Ampatuan massacre, isn't it the general rule sa criminal law is that you file a case where the crime was committed, but they were killed in Maguindanao. So, why was the trial held in Manila? It was because that the Supreme Court changed the venue to avoid a miscarriage of justice. In this case, Judge Gakot was reprimanded and fined for 10,000 pesos for grave abuse of discretion in quashing a criminal case. He argued that only the full court could impose such penalty. However, the ruling clarified that the division of the court can administratively punish lower court judges for fines of 10,000 pesos or less, as serious penalties require and bank review. This allows for efficient handling of administrative matters while maintaining judicial oversight. Therefore, the division ruling against the Judge Gakot was upheld.
The judicial branch has its rule-making powers. So this branch of the Philippine government, primarily the Supreme Court, possesses the constitutional power to promulgate rules concerning the protection and enforcement of constitutional rights, pleading, practice, and procedure in all courts. This rulemaking authority is enshrined in Article 8, Section 5, Paragraph 5 of the 1987 Constitution, allowing the judiciary to ensure the efficient administration of justice. So we can see this in the case of Ilaya versus Gakot, the 2013 case. This case highlights the judiciary's authority in regulating legal professionals. The Supreme Court's rulemaking power, exemplified by Rule 139B, ensures that disciplinary proceedings against lawyers cannot be halted by withdrawal or settlement of complaints, as these actions do not affect the public interest focused on such proceedings. Despite Fe Ilaya's attempt to withdraw her complaint, the court proceeded with the case, emphasizing that the rules are designed to uphold public welfare and maintain the integrity of the legal profession, leading to Attorney Gakot's suspension for ethical violations. So Article 12, Section 14, Paragraph 2, which is the practice of professions, it says that the practice of all professions in the Philippines shall be limited to Filipino citizens. And Article 7, Section 18, Paragraph 3, it can be seen in the case of Echegaray versus Secretary, the 1999 case. Here we can see how the 1987 Constitution has expanded the rulemaking powers of the Supreme Court and omitted such power of the Congress. Such omission showed the intent of the framers to grant the Supreme Court the rulemaking power in its entirety without any power remaining with Congress. Now, as provided by Article 7, Section 12 in the Philippine judicial system, judges are strictly limited to their judicial duties, meaning they do not engage in quasi-judicial or administrative work. This separation helps maintain their impartiality and focus, ensuring that their decisions are fair and free from outside influence. Now, in the case of in-red Judge Rodolfo Manzano, the 1988 case, it is where Judge Manzano requested the Supreme Court for approval to join the Ilocos Norte Provincial Committee on Justice without impacting his judicial role. The court ruled against the appointment, stating that it would breach the Constitution by mixing administrative duties with his judicial responsibilities. And the decision underscored that while judges can contribute to community justice, such roles must not interfere with their primary judicial functions. So thus, Judge Manzano's request was denied. And we should also learn that the report on the judiciary, which can be seen in Article 7, Section 16, that the Supreme Court shall, within 30 days from the opening of each regular session of the Congress, submit to the President and the Congress an annual report on the operations and activities of the judiciary.
The Philippine Constitution outlines a manner of sitting and voting requirements for Congress to ensure democratic governance and accountability. These provisions dictate how our lawmakers convene, deliberate, and make decisions, emphasizing transparency and majority rule. By defining these processes, the Constitution aims to uphold the integrity of the electoral system and represent the people's will effectively. Under Article 7, Section 4, the Philippine Constitution emphasizes the election process for the President and our Vice President who are elected by direct popular vote for a 6-year term starting at noon on June 30 after the election. The President cannot seek re-election and anyone serving more than 4 years is ineligible. The Vice President may serve 2 consecutive terms. Elections are held on the second Monday of May. Certified results from the local commission services are sent to Congress, where the President of Senate opens them in a joint session within 30 days. The candidate with the most votes wins. And in case of a tie, the Congress decides by majority votes. The Supreme Court is the final authority on election disputes, ensuring the process's integrity and fairness. The discussion under the Rule 56, Section 7 of the 1997 Rules on Civil Procedure, when filing a complaint, plaintiffs must submit a sworn certification confirming that no related actions are pending and disclosing any existing cases. They must also report any new claims discovered within 5 days. Failure to comply can lead to dismissal without prejudice, while submitting false information will result in indirect contempt. Willful forum shopping incurs harsher penalties, including summary dismissal with prejudice and administrative sanctions. This process promotes fairness and discourages abusive litigation practices. Also in the Rule 125, Section 3, 2000 Rules on Criminal Procedure outlines what happens when the Supreme Court is equally divided on whether to acquit an appellant. If the justices cannot reach a majority decision after the deliberation, the original conviction from the lower court will be reversed, resulting in the acquittal of the accused. This provision, however, upholds the principle of reasonable doubt, ensuring that if the court cannot definitively decide on guilt, the accused must be acquitted. Articles 8, Sections 13 to 14, the Section 13 requires the Supreme Court to discuss cases collectively before assigning a member to write the opinion. A certification from the Chief Justice is attached to the case record, and any dissenting justice must explain their reasons. This rule also applies to lower collegiate courts. In the Section 14 mandates that all court decisions clearly state that the supporting facts and laws. Additionally, in any petitions for review or motions for reconsideration must include a clear legal basis for acceptance or denial, ensuring transparency and understanding of the court's rulings. So, under the case of Mangilan versus Court of Appeals, in this case, this highlights the necessity for courts to justify their decisions thoroughly, especially when reversing previous rulings. Providing clear reasoning promotes the transparency and integrity in the legal system, ensuring that all parties understand the basis for judicial outcomes. And also in the case of German machineries versus Indaya, the Supreme Court ruled with the labor arbiter finding the suspension letters were unjustified and served as an attempt to validate an illegal dismissal. The court denied Indaya's petition and affirmed the Court of Appeals' decision, where the Supreme Court ruled that Indaya's dismissal was illegal due to lack of proper documentation and procedures, highlighting the importance of just cause in termination cases.
Let's talk about monetary period for deciding cases. So in the Philippines, judiciary constitution mandates a specific period for courts to decide cases to ensure timely justice. According to Article 8, Section 15, Philippine Constitution outlines the mandatory period within which court must decide cases. This provision is aimed at preventing undue delays in the judicial process and ensuring the timely administration of justice. First is the Supreme Court must decide cases within 24 months from the date they are submitted for resolution. Second, the lower court, such as the Court of Appeals and the Sandigan Bayan, must decide cases within 12 months from submission. And the third is all other lower courts like regional trial courts and municipal trial courts are required to resolve cases within 3 months from submission. This section embodies the principle that justice delayed is justice denied. It seeks to maintain the efficiency of the judiciary by imposing clear time limits, ensuring that litigants receive prompt resolution to their legal dispute. If a judge fails to decide a case within these prescribed periods, they may be subject to administrative sanction, further emphasizing accountability within the judiciary. So, according to Article 7, Section 18, Paragraph 3 of the Philippine Constitution, limits the President's powers during martial law or the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. It requires the President to report to Congress within 48 hours of such a declaration, with Congress having the authority to revoke or extend it. So, martial law does not automatically suspend the Constitution or civil court, or does it allow military courts to handle civilian case if civil courts are operational. So, the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus is confined to situation of invasion or rebellion where public safety is at risk. So, according to Article 18, Section 12 to 14, so the Philippine Constitution address the transition from the 1973 to the 19th Constitution. Section 12 ensures that all existing courts continue to function until reformed by the new Constitution. Section 13 mandates that all government and armed forces officials remain in office until their successors are appointed or they are removed by law or authority. So, Section 14 authorized the President to reorganize the judiciary in accordance with the new Constitution, including the removal or replacement of judges within legal limits. So, in the case of Oka versus Fuentes, it is the case on 2013. So, a judicial audit for the Regional Trial Court, Branch 49, Tagbilaran City, Bohol, led by the Judge Fernando G. Fuentes III, found that the court had 272 pending cases, including 70 overdue cases dating back to 2003. So, Judge Fuentes III is frequent travel from his home in Ozambe City and health issues were cited as reason for delay. But this does not justify his failure to decide cases within the mandated 90-day period. So, the Office of the Court Administrator recommended that Judge Fuentes be found guilty of gross inefficiency, fined 50,000, and warned that future similar offenses would incur harshest penalties. The court agreed and emphasizing that delays in case resolution violate judicial conduct norms and warrant administrative sanction. So, and also in the case of Emery Judge Carbonell, it is the case on 2013, and Judge Antonio A. Carbonell of the Regional Trial Court of San Fernando La Union was found to have failed to decide also 41 criminal and 22 civil cases within the required time frame before his retirement on December 31. Despite attributing the delays to his health issues following a quadruple heart bypass surgery, the Office of the Court Administrator recommended a 50,000 fine for gross inefficiency. So, the court, recognizing his health condition as a mitigating factor, reduced the fine to 20,000, which will be deducted from his retirement benefits.
So the provision highlights the qualifications required to be a member of the Supreme Court. No person shall be appointed a member of the Supreme Court unless he or she is a natural-born citizen of the Philippines, at least 40 years of age, and must have been for 15 years or more a judge of a lower court engaged in the practice of law in the Philippines. In a case discussing the seniority amongst four appointments, the Supreme Court addressed seniority amongst four recently appointed Associate Justice of the Court of Appeals, Fernandez, Peralta Jr., Hernando, and Antonio Valenzuela. All four were appointed on February 16, 2010, except for Antonio Valenzuela, who was appointed on February 24, 2010. Justice Antonio Valenzuela argued that she should be considered the most senior based on the transmittal of her appointment. However, the Supreme Court ruled that seniority is determined by the date of the commission and is signed by the President. So meaning, Fernandez, Peralta Jr., and Hernando are senior to Antonio Valenzuela. The salary structure for the Chief Justice, Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, and judges of the lower courts is crucial for judicial independence and the functioning of the judiciary. The salary of the Chief Justice and Associate Justices shall be fixed by law, and during their tenure, their salary shall not be decreased. This ensures that transparency and accountability while protecting judges from political pressure and allowing them to make decisions based on law and justice. According to Article 8, Section 11, as well as Section 2, Paragraph 2 of the Constitution, members of the Supreme Court and judges of lower courts hold their positions during good behavior until they reach 70 or become incapacitated. This provision ensures judicial independence by protecting judges from arbitrary removal. In the case of De La Llana versus Alba, the Supreme Court addressed the security of tenure for judges, which protects their positions until they turn 70 or become incapacitated. The court emphasized that judges can only be removed for just cause, ensuring judicial independence. Petitioners challenged Batas Pamansabi Bilang 129 for potentially violating this security by allowing arbitrary separation. However, the court found that no actual controversy as one petitioner had not been removed, when the law itself was not unconstitutional. The court recognized the risk of arbitrary enforcement and affirmed that judges can seek redress for violations of their rights, reinforcing the importance of security of tenure. Section 11 establishes that members of the Supreme Court and lower court judges hold office during good behavior until they reach 70 or become incapacitated. It grants the Supreme Court and bank the authority to discipline or dismiss lower court judges by a majority vote, while key officials, including the President and Supreme Court justices, can be removed through impeachment for serious offenses. Other public officers face removal according to specific legal procedures, highlighting the importance of accountability as well as judicial independence. In People versus Gakot, the ruling reflects the application of Article 8, Section 11 of the Philippine Constitution, which grants the Supreme Court and BAMP the authority to discipline judges of lower courts. The Supreme Court found that Judge Gakot exhibited gross ignorance of the law, which constituted a serious breach of the standards expected from a member of the judiciary. The ruling emphasizes accountability, mechanisms for judges, and the importance of maintaining judicial integrity. So this provision explains and emphasizes that there is but one Supreme Court of the Philippine Islands. It is the jurisdiction of this Supreme Court which cannot be diminished. The Supreme Court remains a unit notwithstanding its works in division. Although it may have two divisions, it is but a single court. Actions considered in any of these divisions and decisions rendered therein are in effect by the same tribunal. In Inot versus IIC, Inot transported 6 carabaos from Masbate to Iloilo, violating EO Order 626A, which prohibits interprovincial movement of carabaos. After the police confiscated the carabaos, Inot sought to return, but the court upheld the confiscation, citing the EO's presumed validity. Ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled that EO 626A is unconstitutional, deeming it an invalid exercise of police power. It violated rights to due process by denying property owners the right to a hearing, as well as improperly delegating legislative powers to administrative authorities. The case also clarified that lower courts can address constitutional questions. However, it's still subject to review by the higher courts.
So, again, what are the requirements as to preparation of decision? So, in the Philippines judicial system, decision preparation is governed by procedural requirements to ensure fairness, accuracy, and timely justice. Judge must draft an issued decision within a set period after a case is submitted. Adhering to these rules is vital for maintaining public confidence and upholding the constitutional mandate for prompt case resolution. So Article 8, Section 15, it talks about the outlines, the mandatory periods within which court must decide cases. This provision is aimed at preventing undue delays in the judicial process and ensuring the timely administration of justice. Mandatory period for deciding cases. So, the mandatory period for deciding cases in the Philippine judicial system ensures timely justice. Judges are required by Article 8, Section 15 of the Constitution to resolve cases within 90 days of submission. This rule prevents delays, maintains public confidence, and protects the right to a speedy resolution of dispute and promoting judicial efficiency and accountability. So Article 8, Section 15 of the Philippines Constitution outlines the mandatory period within which court must decide cases. And this provision is aimed at preventing undue delays in the judicial process and ensuring the timely administration of justice. So in the Article 18, Section 12 to 14 of the Philippine Constitution address transitional provision from the 1973 to the 1987 Constitution. So Section 12 ensures the continuity of existing court and administrative bodies until reformed by the new Constitution. And Section 13 mandates that government officials and employees, including those serving at the pleasure of the President, remain in office until successors are appointed or they are legally removed. And Section 14, it empowers the President to recognize the judiciary, including replacing judge and officials within legal bounds. And this provision ensures a smooth transition of governmental structures and leadership during the constitutional shift. So, in the case of Adao versus Lorenzo, Judge Celso and Lorenzo of the Regional Trial Court was found to have violated the mandatory 3-month period for deciding cases as stipulated by Article 8, Section 15, Paragraph 1 of the Philippine Constitution. So, the complaint arose from Judge Lorenzo, failure to rule on edition daw, objection to the dismissal of an election protest filed by Nier Naputo. So, despite citing a heavy case load as suggesting that the matter should be handled by a permanent judge, this reason were deemed insufficient. So, the court ruled that Judge Lorenzo failure to request an extension further contributed to his inefficiency and imposed a 5,000 fine for his inaction.
So we're going to talk about the Judicial and Bar Council. So under Article 8, Section 8, the provision here establishes a Judicial and Bar Council under the Supreme Court supervision, and it consists of the Chief Justice, the Secretary of Justice, a congressional representative, an integrated bar representative, a law professor, a retired Supreme Court member, and a private sector representative. Regular members are appointed by the President for 4-year terms with staggered initial terms for some members. The Clerk of the Supreme Court serves as the Council Secretary. Members receive compensation as determined by the Supreme Court, which also budgets for the Council. The main role of the Council is to recommend judicial appointees along with any other functions assigned by the Supreme Court. So, in the case of De Castro versus the JBC, so in this case, if you remember, this case concerns the impending retirement of Chief Justice Puno way back 2010. And it questions here whether the incumbent president can appoint a successor given constitutional restrictions. The Constitution requires that any judicial vacancy be filed within 90 days by nominees from the Judicial and Bar Council. However, Section 15 of the Article 8 prohibits presidential appointments 2 months before elections. However, in the case, the OSG argued that this prohibition does not apply to the Supreme Court. And the court here ruled that the president cannot appoint the next Chief Justice, clarifying that the restriction in Article 8 does not cover judicial appointments. The decision emphasized the careful drafting of the Constitution, indicating that if the framers intended to include Supreme Court appointments under this prohibition, they would have explicitly stated it in the Article 8. So Article 8, Section 3. So what is under in this section? So under here is that the judiciary has control over its financial resources, which is essential for its independence and effectiveness. This autonomy protects it from political influence and allows for impartial decision-making. The provision also prevents the legislature from cutting the judiciary's budget below the previous year's amount, ensuring stable funding necessary for its operations and the rule of law. And the approved budget for the judiciary should be released automatically and regularly to prevent delays that could impede its ability to function and deliver justice. Overall, Section 3 of Article 8 underscores or talks about the importance of an independent and adequately funded judiciary as a cornerstone of democracy and the rule of law in the Philippines. It aims to protect the judicial system from potential political manipulation and ensures that it can fulfill its role in administering justice effectively. There's a case here named Republic versus Asuncion. So what happened here? So back in 1991, Officer Alexander Junicio shot and killed Sergeant Romeo Sadang while responding to a complaint in Quezon City. Junicio was charged with homicide and the case was assigned to the RTC. However, the RTC raised a jurisdictional issue referencing a Supreme Court ruling that suggested the Sandigan Bayan should handle such cases involving public officials if penalties exceed prison correctional. On September of 1992, the RTC dismissed the case, ordering it to be refiled with the Sandigan Bayan. The private prosecutor argued that jurisdiction belonged to regular courts, citing a Secretary of Justice opinion, but the RTC maintained its stance. The Supreme Court here, in this case, ruled that the Sandigan Bayan is indeed considered a regular court under Republic Act number 6975 and has jurisdiction over cases involving public officials, including PNP members, when crimes relate to their official duties. The court directed the RTC to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine if the homicide charge was connected to Junicio's official capacity, emphasizing the need for clarity on jurisdictional issues between the RTC and Sandigan Bayan.